Hi everyone, welcome to this lesson. I am Daniel Melgarejo and I'm going to be your teacher for now. And today we are going to be talking about movies and especially describing which movies are pretty good. For describing and expressing our opinions about movies, we need some very important words. These words are adjectives. So today's lesson is comparing movies and TV programs. In this lesson, we will be dealing with writing skill. So let me share with you what would be the learning objective for today's lesson. Our goal for today is to write sentences comparing movies and your common preferences using comparative adjectives. So if you are not familiar with these kind of adjectives, just let me give you an overview about what comparative adjectives are. And here you have some ideas. Comparative adjectives are useful especially for comparing things, comparing characteristics and features of the things we are comparing with. So here you have some sentences as an example. You could say, for example, the apple is more delicious than the banana, or you could say a car is faster than a bicycle. So as you see, we are talking about things and we are comparing things. For comparing things, we need comparative adjectives, and this is what I'm going to show you. Please look at this chart, and in this chart you have some example of adjectives and especially how they change. For example, with regard to the types of adjectives, we have one-syllable adjectives. One-syllable adjectives would be old, safe, big, hot. These adjectives could be turned into comparative adjectives. So old turns into older, safe turns into safer, big turns into bigger, and hot turns into hotter. So this change would depend on the type of adjective it is. So as one syllable adjective type, we have other types of adjectives. For example, we have adjectives that ends in y, adjectives with two or more syllables, for example, and irregular adjectives. Among the adjectives that ends in y, we have noisy and dirty. And obviously, we have more adjectives that ends in y, but these are just some examples for you. So in the comparative form, noisy turns into noisier, dirty turns into dirtier, and with regard to adjectives with two or more syllables, we have boring and beautiful. So in this case, there are more than two or more syllables. For using this adjective in a comparative form, we need to add more. So boring turns into more boring, beautiful turns into more beautiful. In the same way, talking about types of adjectives, we have what we call irregular adjectives. That means that these adjectives don't change in a regular manner. For example, we have good, and this adjective turns into better. They are irregular because, as you can see, good doesn't have any similarity with better. Both are uttered different words. So in the same type of adjective, we have bad, which turns into worse, and far, which turns into farther. You see, we are going to use these words called adjectives that are used for comparison for describing what we prefer. We are going to use these adjectives to compare our favorite movies. So let's start. With this objective of comparing movies in mind, let's compare the Spider-Man movies. I don't know how much you are familiar with these movies. Let me share with you this question. How many versions of the same superhero have you seen? Up to this point, we have many versions about the same character, you know? For example, we have Tom Holland's version, which is the most current version in these days. And then we have Andrew Garfield version and the Tobey Maguire's version. So, which do you think is the best and why? Please use comparative adjectives to describe or to compare these movies. Which one do you think is the best? Please, for sharing your opinion, you can use this prompt. You could say, I think Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man is better than Garfield's version or Tobey Maguire's version because it is modern, you could say, or you could use other comparative adjectives. So with regard to Spider-Man movies, we have already many versions about them, so this is a good opportunity to use comparative adjectives, you know? So in this process, I think you will identify some characteristics of these movies. Even though they are talking about the same character, they have pretty different stories and plots, and even they have different designs of their costume. For example, the costume of Mr. Spider-Man's from Mr. Maguire's version, it's very different from Tom Holland's version, right? So you have some ideas to compare. Let me share with you some phrases that could be helpful for you to start your comparison. Here I show you 6 phrases you may use for starting your comparing sentences. For example, number 1, we have good costume design. So you could use this phrase to create a sentence which compares these movies about the same character. And we have 5 more. For example, you can use this phrase, great music background, the music background from the movie, who has it better. Number 3, for example, we have interesting or boring plot, or you can create a sentences comparing the budget of the movies. It could be a cheap or an expensive budget, or you could compare the scary villains they have. And at the end, we have another phrase that could be useful for you to create your own sentence. And here we have awesome visual effects. So please participate in this lesson and create your own sentences comparing these movies. In the process of this lesson, you will have the help from your partners and even your teacher. Because when you write your ideas, you may have some mistakes and you may have some need for help. So please ask for help if you need it. Ask to your teacher. Please don't hesitate to ask for help, especially in the revising and editing part. So you will create your own chart, which could be useful for comparing the movies you choose. At the end, you will create a comparison chart by using some of these platforms, like for example, Canva, Powtoon, and others. Please participate in this class, and I'm sure you will have a very good and fun time. So this is all for now. I see you in the class. Goodbye.